All right, great. We're recording. This is Jessica Taylor. It is April 25th, 2023, and we're here on Zoom. This is for the Tidewater Main Street Project at the Samuel Proctor Oral History Program. And who do I have the pleasure of speaking with today?
And my name is Hollis Jordan.
Great. And when and where were you born?
I was born in Middlesex County, Saluda, Stormont, actually, they called it at that point, July 1st, 1946.
And what were your parents' names and occupations?
My father was John Hollis Jordan Sr. I'm John Hollis Jordan Jr. My mom was Rosa E. Jordan, Rosa E. Sutherland Jordan.
What did they do?
And my dad, employment was mostly at the Naval Weapons Station in Yorktown, Virginia. And my mom worked for 2 or 3 years, I guess, at the as a cleaning lady at the Saluda Motel.
How did your father get to the Naval Weapons Station?
I think he'd been in the service, and he got out of the service, and I think for a couple of years he worked at the Havana Lumber Company there. And I think he just heard about the fact that I guess that they were hiring at the Naval Weapons Station, and he applied and got a job there. And worked,
Okay.
I guess he retired, I believe, in about 82 or something like that. And I think he was there most of my school years, and so I started at school in 1952. So he probably worked there like 30 years or so. Yeah.
Okay. And would you mind just backing away from the computer a little bit so that we can see your whole face? There we go.
Okay.
And I meant in terms of transportation, how did he get to Yorktown all the way from Middlesex County every day?
Right. It was a group of about 4 or 5 of them, and they would meet in up at the courthouse and take turns driving. 1 week, one would drive, and that's how they did it.
Okay, great. And did you have siblings?
Yes, brother or sister. My sister's passed. She died in 2009, right after she saw Obama get elected. So she was happy to see that. And then she passed in January of 2010, 2009, actually. He was elected 2008. She passed in the night before he was actually inaugurated in 2009.
And you said you have a brother?
She was a year and a half older than I am. And my brother still lives in Kilmarnock across the river there. And he's 6 years younger than I am, Robert.
Okay. And did your family live in the location where you were born?
Yes.
Like in your childhood?
Yes.
Okay. When did you attend St. Clair Walker High School?
I was at St. Clair Walker, I think, from 59, that September of 59, I believe, because I think we went as 8th graders actually to St. Clair Walker. And I was there until June of 63 as a junior. I left there and went to Middlesex High School, integrated the Middlesex High School in my senior year. So those years, 1 through grades 8 through 11, I believe, at St. Clair Walker.
Mm-hmm. And did your siblings? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, like I said, that was, I believe, 59 to 63.
And did your siblings attend as well?
The St. Clair Walker, yes. My sister stayed there and graduated in 64. My brother's 6 years younger than I am, and I know he graduated from Middlesex High School too, and I believe in 1970. And so I'm not sure exactly what year he started to attend the integrated school. I know the whole system integrated in '69. I think '69 was the last year of St. Clair Walker's existence as a high school. But I'm not sure if he was I'm not sure if he went to to the Middlesex before that time or not. I'm not sure on that, but I know he did graduate from Middlesex High in '70, I believe.
And did you have other family that attended St. Clair Walker beyond your
Oh,
siblings?
yes, yes. All of my other relatives went to St. Clair Walker. I had tons of cousins, my mom's and father's side that attended St. Clair Walker. Um, uh, my uncle George's daughters and kids son went to St. Clair Walker. My Aunt Thelma's children all went to St. Clair Walker. Actually, my father's two sisters I know graduated from St. Clair Walker. Betty and Mary graduated from St. Clair Walker. I think my Betty Elizabeth graduated, I believe, in '54, and I think Mary graduated in '57. Those were close relatives that I, and then on my mom's side, I had her sister's child, Karina, graduated in '65, and my Aunt Verlene's sons, Wilbert and Eli, graduated in '68 and '69.
Okay, wow, that's a great many people. But your father didn't go, even though his sisters did?
Right. There were I think there were like 10 kids in their family, in their, siblings in their families there. And so my father was about at least 20 years older than the youngest ones. See, he was born in 1917. And his oldest sister, I think Thelma, was born in 1915. And the youngest one, Mary, was born in 1939. So I think St. Clair Walk actually didn't exist when my father was in high school, and he didn't finish high school anyway. I think the school at that time was called Middlesex Training School, and I'm not sure if he went to school there or not, because I know he went to the school, I think, in Essex County called RI Academy. And I think he went through the 11th grade there. And he didn't complete that either. And my mom, I'm not sure. It seems like I remember her not going to, I think the high school that she graduated from was called Syringa. I believe that was a high school at that point. So this was about 1938 or 9, I think, that she would have graduated. And I'm pretty sure that the school that she attended was called Syringa, that she graduated from. It's called Syringa.
Okay. And what are your earliest memories of St. Clair Walker High School?
Probably about the time that the first aunt graduated in 1954, seeing, I think, a May Day parade, floats and all that they were on, and some of the majorettes and all that were there. Those are my first memories of the school itself. I didn't attend at that point. I think, as I said, I went there in '59, and I just remember a lot of the teachers that were there that were influential as far as my higher education. I graduated from high school and attended Hampton Institute. After I went to Hampton Institute. And so I remember the teachers and the principals and the fact that my mom and dad looked up to those teachers there, and I guess they kind of influenced me a lot too, because the the influence that those teachers had on my mom and dad.
Can you say more about that? Who sticks out to you in terms of influencing your parents?
Well, I remember that they really liked Mrs. Easter Holmes, because I think she actually taught, was their teacher when they were in high school. I think she taught them, not at St. Clair Walker, but I think she taught them as they were coming up. I'm pretty sure that and that so it was kind of interesting that I was a student of Mrs. Holmes also, and so that was just an interesting fact, I thought. And then the proposals you talk. Remember, Pat is kind of organizing this whole Middlesex thing, and her mom was part of the community too. I think she was a teacher, and her dad was the dentist, and so they influenced us. Yes.
Mhm. Can you tell me more about the May Day parades that you remember?
That was a tradition that started. Actually, I remember those in elementary schools. I think like the first weekend in May, that first Friday in May, all of the I remember this specifically in the elementary schools too. That was a special day. No classes. It would just be outdoor activities, wrapping the maypole, baseball games. I think the other schools would. I think the other elementary schools. It seems like there were other elementary schools that would come to my even to the elementary schools and play baseballs. Anyway, that for sure was the case at St. Clair Walker. There would be other high schools that would come around and play baseball games in the afternoon. But there would be the parade, the maypole wrapping, and all that. And one specific one, May Day, that I remember is the one in I'm not sure, 61 or 63. Anyway, Alan Shepard was launched into space, and he was the first guy first U.S. person to go into space. And I remember that happened, one of those May Days that we had.
Do you remember talking to people about current events like that at St. Clair Walker, or beforehand, is I guess what you're referencing there too?
Yeah. And I also that was Alan Shepard, I think, that just flew into space. And then I think like a couple of years or a year or two later was when John Glenn actually orbited the Earth in one of those. And that was, they showed that had an assembly and showed that in the auditorium there to the whole school. And that was a big deal. So yeah, that was something that everybody discussed there. Yes.
Why the interest in space? It's come up a lot, actually.
Because it was new at that point. And I remember when Kennedy got elected in 1960, and his inaugural address, he was speaking about getting a person on the moon by the end of the decade, by 1970. And that in fact did happen. So it was all in the news, and people were very interested in that.
Not that the U.S. space program isn't political, but do you remember talking to your parents or people at school about politics in the 50s and 60s?
Oh, yeah. Well, I guess, yeah, because it was politics. It was about race relations and NAACP, because my dad and mom belonged to the NAACP, and it all had to do with, we'd see all the strife that was going on in Alabama and Birmingham with the sheriff and all that. So I guess that's political, you know. We, I know my dad was very active as far as who to vote for and that kind of thing, as far as, you know, governor and those offices, state offices, yes.
You said that they were involved in the NAACP. What was their involvement like? What were they working on when you were a kid?
That was basically about the civil rights and integration and being treated right. Because I remember I think it was about one of the school systems I think it was in Prince Edward County, had shut down the schools because of the integration, because I think they were ordered to integrate, and instead of having that happen, instead of integrating, they decided, the school system there, the school board decided they would just shut down the whole public school system in that county. And so it happened, that remained the case for about 6 or 7 years. And so a lot of the blacks there, most of the blacks had no education. There were some of them, I think, that, you know, had relatives that lived in other places, other cities in New York, Philadelphia, that moved there. But a lot of people didn't, you know, they just missed out on education for those 6 or 7 years.
What do you remember your parents saying about that at the time?
Well, I thought that it was not good. It was bad, and it was a negative reaction that they had about that.
Mhm. You mentioned also like local and state elections. Do any of those stick out to you from your childhood that your parents or other folks were involved in?
I remember that the governor was, I remember the one governor's name was Mills Godwin. I think he was the governor then. And I'm not sure whether they were for or against him. But I know we were involved in they were involved in that campaign with his opponent. And I'm thinking that the person that they were backing did not win, but I'm not sure on that.
Not everybody was involved in the NAACP at the time. Why were your parents so interested? And at what point did they decide to get involved?
You know, it seems like from all of my life that they were involved with that. Not all of my life. Well, I don't know. I remember them from my earliest memory of them is that they were involved with it, and I was probably like 5, 6 years old when they were involved with it at that point. So that would be, you know, 52, 53, or 55 down in those times. And I know perhaps maybe it was about Martin Luther King too, because I think all of that, you know, the boycott and all that in Montgomery was going on and around that time. So perhaps that's what you know, started it all. I remember also, you know, I think we got our first TV in 56. So perhaps that's, you know, what started it all too. We used to watch the news and you know, probably got a lot of information there.
How did it influence your own thinking in your own life? Their political involvement and involvement in the community.
Well, they're, you know, they my dad especially wanted me to, you know, the NAACP or whatever the group was got together in the probably spring of 63 to integrate the schools. And he asked me, my dad, if I wanted to do that. And, I'd seen all of the stuff on TV about the, the treatment and all that of the students in Alabama, and I'd heard about the sit-ins in North Carolina at the college. And so I just wanted to, I saw it, I was affected by it, and I was afraid. I was kind of nervous about doing that, but I wanted to do it. They asked me, and I wanted to integrate the school.
And what was your first day like upon integration?
I remember that there was separate busing at that point. The white kids got on one bus and would go to Middlesex High School and to the white high school, and the black kids would go to St. Clair Walker or whatever school they went to. And so that whole year, we still got picked up by the on the bus for the black kids went to St. Clair Walker, and then all of us, it was like 10 or 12, I guess it was, that probably went from Middlesex, from St. Clair Walker to the high school, which is about 4 or 5 miles up the road, I guess. And that was interesting, and I didn't know what to expect. I guess it was kind of scary because I'd seen all of the reactions from some of the people in further south, but none of that happened with us there. It was nothing violent, nothing actively that vindictive or no riots or anything, no protest. I was still, I didn't feel comfortable, but nothing happened to me. Now I've heard some of the other students that were there with me in the high school, especially, that were saying that they'd heard people call them niggers and that kind of thing, using those terms to refer to them. But I never heard anybody call me like that. That was 63 September, and so I think that was also that was the same year that the kids were killed at the church in Birmingham, and right around that, I think it was in September that they were killed down there. The bombing of the church at 16th Street Baptist Church there, and we went right around that time to integrate the to Middlesex High School. So we were nervous about that. I was, for sure. And that also, that same year, 63, was when Kennedy was killed. And so that was especially when some of the other black students said they heard a lot of the white students calling the N-word and that kind of things. But I never did. So it was a nervous time for me. But I graduated in 64, and I would get invitations from the students there, the kids that used to be the presidents and all that of the officers of the class, to go to reunions, and I never did until the 50th. They had the 50th reunion in 2014, and I went back for that. It was interesting. That was, everybody seemed friendly, and I was happy to see them. Excuse me. It was very good to go back after those 50 years and seeing them, for me.
How were classes different between the two schools?
As far as the they weren't really that different. I think I'd taken French, started French at St. Clair Walker, and went to Middlesex High School, and I didn't feel like I'd lost anything by I think they had a pretty good curriculum at St. Clair Walker. Um, I I'd taken biology and algebra and all that at Middlesex High at St. Clair Walker, and so I felt I was pretty up to speed with the classes I'd taken at St. Clair Walker compared to I didn't feel like I was behind at all.
How did it affect your social life to integrate?
It was it had quite an effect because I didn't really make any friends with the new people at Middlesex High. I knew a lot of them. I'd speak to them, but I never socialized with them. I don't think I went to a football game or a basketball game at that. There was no socialization, no. I went to class, but that was it. I stuck with the people that I had known previously at St. Clair Walker. I go to their basketball, and they didn't have football, but I go to their basketball games and other social affairs like the prom. I went to the prom at St. Clair Walker with one of the young ladies that was in my class. I graduated in '64.
Did the choice to integrate affect your parents at all?
They were happy to see that happen. And as far as effect, my mom, the job that she had at the motel, that I let her go. My dad, because he worked at the Naval Weapons Station, was not affected by that. I know my dad's sister had a couple of, I think all of her kids went from the black school system to Middlesex, the Middlesex complex up there. And she was a bus driver for the county, and she lost her job as a bus driver because of that. That was Bertha Taylor. And she sent all of her kids to integrate the system. She had, I think her kids were in the elementary school. I don't think she had any kids in the high school, but they were in the elementary part of that building, like the 5th, 6th grade, I think was the oldest of her children.
How did both of your families manage the loss of income? Was there an ability to get another job later on once it had passed, or?
My mom never did. I think my Aunt Bertha left the the bus driving job and worked at Barnhart's, the duck farm down there at Christ Church. I believe that's what she did. But my mom, she never went back to work again now. And so I guess my dad's income was enough to keep us going.
At St. Clair Walker, were you involved in extracurriculars that you could continue to be involved in once you integrated?
They had basketball. Remember when I was in the 9th grade, I tried to join a junior varsity and was on the junior varsity team in basketball. And I didn't do very well. I wasn't very good athletically at all, and so I never played basketball. And the other sport they had was baseball. I never participated in that either. So those extracurricular things, I didn't do sports. Some of the clubs, I think it was on like a committee for, in my junior year, I was dealing with the prom, setting up, doing that in my junior year there. And so I didn't do anything like that in at the high school, at the Middlesex High School. No.
What was prom like?
As I said, I didn't do that in my senior year at all.
Right.
I went back. Yeah, I went back to the St. Clair Walking Day. That was great. I loved it. Because I all of the small school. I think it was like 30 people maybe in the class, in the senior class there, and most of them participated, and I did, and it was a great time. And I know one of the other young ladies that went to the Middlesex High School was also a senior, and she also participated in the prom at St. Clair Walker, and she enjoyed that. We enjoyed that. That was good. I didn't go with her. I went with another young lady, and she went with a cousin of mine. I believe it was her date at that particular prom, I believe. But yeah.
Wonderful. Do you remember any other celebrations or big events at St. Clair Walker while you were there, or that you attended, in your spare time once you had integrated?
Not during that year, no. I think that the only thing that I participated in that year was the prom and basketball games. As I said, I'd go to the basketball games, and then I'm thinking that their graduation was not at the same time as mine. I'm pretty sure that it wasn't. The Middlesex High School's graduation and St. Clair Walker's were different days, probably the same week, but I attended that. And in fact, I still have a program upstairs, the paper program of the St. Clair Walker's graduation for that year.
What do you remember about that day?
Nothing.
Okay. Were there mentors?
I just remember what I see what was on the program, written on the program of the people, the valedictorian and all those. I remember those people, and the program says that they had words to say, and evidently they did, but I don't remember any of those things happening there. But that's just me and my memory.
Well, what do you remember? Did you go to your own graduation?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did. And participated, and then I was happy. I was proud to do that too. There were, my mom and dad were there, and several teachers from St. Clair Walker also attended that, and other community people to support us were there. So that was good. That was a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Were there mentors at St. Clair Walker that stick out to you?
Yes. The principal, Mr. Thurston, my I think lady named Miss Scarborough, Miss Rosa Scarborough, came to St. Clair Walker when I was in the 10th grade, I believe. And so, I really liked her. She was a social studies teacher, and she was a mentor and somebody that I looked up to and I liked. We just had a good relationship. And then at St. Clair Walker was also the biology teacher that I had, Mr. Lomax, who was a Hampton graduate and influenced me to go to Hampton. The principal was also a Hampton graduate. He wanted me to go there. And then my geometry teacher, Mr. Prater, who I think is Pat's brother-in-law. Yeah, Pat's sister married Mr. Prater, and he just passed. Mr. Prater just passed, I think, within the last year. And he was really influential with me as far as, you know, being positive and asserting myself and, you know, being the best that I could be. I remember him, you know, being I was really influenced by him, yes. Him and Miss Barber, Mr. Prater, Mr. Lomax, and Miss Barber. And then also Mrs. Thurston, because she would always, she was our English teacher. No, she was she did English and she taught French, but she would always have in her room. She'd always have the pictures of you know, the Black people that had accomplished things like Marian Anderson, Jackie Robinson, lots of positive images of Black people she'd have on her bulletin boards there. So those are people that, teachers that stand out to me and that were highly influential, I think, with me.
What did they tell you about college and Hampton in particular?
That, you know, that that it was good to go to college to get something, advance my education to sort of like, you know, find a better job and that kind of thing. They were just influential that way, and as I say too, those people evidently influenced my mom and dad, because my mom always wanted me to go to college. My mom wanted to go to college, didn't, but she regretted that, and so she for sure wanted me to go, and she was influenced by them, and they did too, just because they had been, and you know, we just looked up to them because they had that.
What did they tell you about Hampton in particular?
Nothing really specific about Hampton. It's just that they had been there and that they enjoyed the life that they had there and the education that they got.
In the classroom, do any moments like of lessons that you received or exams, strange things, anything like that stick out to you from your time at St. Clair Walker?
I remember in the biology class with Mr. Lomax, I'd always, you know, he'd give pop quizzes every once in a while, or probably like once a week he'd do that. And so I always wanted to be ready for those, and I had competition, you know, with me, a guy named Henry Easton, and I remember, I think Joan Kidd, Reynold Johnson were all in that class. And I always competed because they were always good students, and you know, and so I wanted to at least get the grade that they got, or try to beat them in you know, do better than they did. So there's always a competition that day with the students. And the same thing with the geography. I remember Miss Scarborough would give these world history lessons and talk about these places and things, and she was good. I like the way she expressed herself and enunciated words and that kind of thing. So I just remember those times.
Mm-hmm. Overall, what would you say some of your biggest accomplishments were in your time at St. Clair Walker?
And you know, I think the one year I was, they used to have the math science conferences. Um, and that would be sort of a regional thing as far as the state of Virginia. It would be for black. It was a black um, student kind of thing because all of the kids from uh, as far north, I guess, is where we were in Saluda. I don't know if Essex people were there. Anyway, I remember the one. They used to have them, I guess, all over the Southeast because I guess they used to have them you go to colleges like Virginia State, Virginia Union, and the high school kids would go to those campuses. And I know the one that I remember was the one at Hampton. And I went there and I think I was, I think it was a geometry. So I was with math, doing math. And I got third place in the geometry competition that year with students that were, there from Newport News, from Hampton, Williamsburg, all those schools down there. And so I got third place in the math. So I was pretty proud of that.
That's really wonderful. Do you remember any tough times that stick out to you while you were at St. Clair Walker?
No, nothing bad. No, nothing tough. No, all great memories.
Okay. And just a couple follow-up questions. How did you get to school to St. Clair Walker? I know you rode the bus to Middlesex High,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, I rode the bus also to Middlesex High. The same bus, actually, the same bus that picked me up from the 8th through the 11th grade to go to Middlesex to St. Clair Walker is the same bus that I would take that same route to get to St. Clair Walker, and then another bus from St. Clair Walker to Middlesex High.
okay. And what were those bus rides like?
To Middlesex High, to the high school, to the
Just-
White High School, or the from my house to before Middlesex High, or
Yes, before Middlesex High.
those were I remember getting on those buses from first grade and having the 12th graders on the same bus. And so it was intimidating those, the first couple of years, first several years. And then as I got older, it was a lot of fun. As I got to be like a junior, sophomore, junior on the bus, the rides were fun. I lived only, I think, I was close enough to the school though that I would be one of the last ones to get on the bus, and therefore only had like a couple of minutes, 10 minutes or so to get from my house, like maybe another couple of stops from my stop to the high school. So maybe and so I'd only have like a 10-minute ride, and then coming back, I'd be one of the first ones to get off. So I kind of didn't like that. I wanted to be. It was great. I thought to be one. If I could have stayed longer on the bus on the ride.
And what do you remember about the cafeteria and the cafeteria workers at St. Clair Walker?
I remember that the cafeteria was at a different building. You have to go out of the main building of the high school to get to the cafeteria. And most of the time we took our own lunch. We brought our own lunch from home. And I thought it was a big deal, really, if I could. I think it was cool, really, to get lunch at to buy your lunch or whatever it was at the cafeteria. Most of the time we didn't, but every once in a while, maybe 2 or 3 times a year, we get to buy lunch at the cafeteria then. So I thought that was cool, and so I like that. They had the ice cream machine over there, and used to get dreamsicles, fudgesicles, and all that there. Buy those every once in a while. So the lunch experience was great too. All of that was fun.
How do you feel like St. Clair Walker prepared you for the rest of life?
Because of the education that I got there it got me out of high school basically because I felt I knew I was up to speed at Middlesex High School because of all of the background and the learning that I had achieved at St. Clair Walker before, and then leaving all of that and going to Hampton. I felt confident. So I think that I think the education and the learning that I received there was good.
Can you walk me through your career after you graduated high school?
Yeah, I left high school and went to Hampton Institute, and that was 64 to 66. I was there for a couple of years. and because I didn't study, I was on probation because my grades didn't meet their standards, so I didn't have so I was on probation for a semester between my sophomore at the end of my sophomore year, because my grades went up. I had poor grades. I'd always go to class, but I never studied. I didn't do very much studying all that. So my GPA went below 2. And so I was put on probation for a semester. I was going to go back in January of 67, I guess. Yeah. But while I was out from that one semester, I got drafted and went to join the Army, and was drafted into the Army, and ended up going to Vietnam, and I was actually, after I was drafted and then signed up for another year because I was trying to avoid Vietnam. The recruiters said, yeah, you need to sign up for another year and you can stay out of Vietnam. And so I signed up for the other year. And basically, as soon as I did that, I got orders to go to Vietnam. So I went to Vietnam anyway, and I had to do 3 years in the service. Vietnam, Texas, and then to Germany. And then I got out at the end of the 3 years and went back to Hampton in September of 69, and graduated in 71, May of 71, came to Detroit to work at Park Davis, and moved to Ann Arbor here, working for Park Davis, and which became Warner Lambert, which became Pfizer, and did that for 34 years plus. And that's what I did. And now I've been retired since for 18 years, I guess.
Wow. What were you involved in Vietnam? What was your role?
I was in communications, teletype operator, worked with communications.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything about Vietnam or your career in the military or afterward that you want to talk more about?
Not really, no. Except that that in Vietnam I met a guy that was a white guy that was from probably over in your. Are you in Blacksburg now?
Mm-hmm.
He was somewhere. He was from somewhere over in that part of Virginia, and so I was there and met him, and got to know him, talked to him, and I remember he sent some photos from, or his folks sent him some photos to Vietnam around Christmas time or in the winter. It had snow and all that on the ground, and I loved that. It was a great picture, I thought. And he was a cool guy. I thought I like that guy, and I thought it was interesting that he was from Virginia. He was a white guy, and we got along pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
I was happy to get out of Vietnam. I was glad to leave, but there are a lot of things about Vietnam that were the first couple of 6 months I was there was beautiful. I didn't have to, it was peaceful. There was no problems at all. And then things started to break loose when they had the Tet Offensive, and it got kind of hairy where I was in Saigon. And so I was glad to leave there. Then probably about 3 years ago, probably about 10 years ago, this guy that I know here in Michigan advised that I should get this VA benefit because I'd been in Vietnam and he was saying that if you were there, you could get this benefit because of Agent Orange. And so I finally applied for that 2 or 3 years ago. So I'm getting that now. So that's one plus that came out of Vietnam.
I know that Hampton isn't Middlesex County either, but what was and is it like being so far away from where you grew up, in the Army, but also in Michigan?
What is this now? What's your question? Can you state that again?
What is it like being so far away from home?
Oh, right now, you
Young
mean?
person.
Right now?
No, as a young person.
Oh, as a young person? Oh, I remember, like when I first went to Hampton, it's only 50 miles away, but especially, well, it took me a while, I guess, to get accustomed to that. I got really homesick, I guess, about a month into it. And, but I stayed and came back home for Thanksgiving, came home for Thanksgiving and couldn't wait to get back. So I really, I adjusted quickly. I loved it. I loved it. I guess, I don't know if you've heard about this show on TV called Different World. It was really that kind of a thing. It was, you go down to Hampton to the school there, you're on your own, having fun, and it was just totally different than the environment back home. So Hampton was a great experience for me. I like that. Vietnam, that was just scary because of the combat and the fact that you could die, people were shooting at you. You're in a combat area. So that was very, very uncomfortable. But I basically, the whole time I was in the service, I just wanted to get out and complete my degree and, go back to Hampton and do that. And so, I didn't mind being far away, but I just wanted to complete complete my degree.
So let me take you back to Middlesex County and ask some questions about Cook's Corner. What are your earliest memories of Cook's Corner or hearing about Cook's Corner?
My earliest memories are that, I'd see, we'd go by there on Saturday afternoons to go maybe to Urbana to get groceries and things like that. And on those Saturday afternoons anyway, a lot of cars up there. And on the one side was, I think Lynn Davis had a little bar kind of thing. And there would be lots of activity there. I think there'd be beer and all that stuff. I never was allowed to go there. And then on the other side of the street there, Cook's Corner was Mrs. Jackson, Frances Jackson's place. And, she sold gas and bread and things like that. So I'd go in there every once in a while with my folks to get maybe a honey bun or something. She had a jukebox in there. And so maybe once in a while we'd go in and play that. But Cook's Corner was a place that was off limits. The Lynn Davis part of it anyway, where the all of the bar and all that stuff, where they had the beer and drinks and all that. He also, the same guy had the service station that was right next to it. So, every once in a while I go over there in the car with my dad, put gas in the car or something. And that, I remember Cook's Corner was just in a place for adults. And I never went to any kind of happening there.
Okay. Do you remember anything about the baseball field or the outdoor movie?
No, not. I guess I remember the attending a game there, I guess once or twice a game. I don't remember, very little do I remember about that, but I do remember going there, yes.
Okay. What about the ice cream parlor?
That, I think we used to get I used to get ice cream, and I think at Mrs. Jackson's place, Francis Jackson. And that was just, you get there, go there every once in a while to, it was nothing social what really was going on there ever. It was always business for, get ice cream or bread or maybe some gas or something like that every once in a while. That was not a real social gathering place in my mind.
Do you remember what it looked like inside?
Yeah. I remember, you go in and on there's a jukebox over on the right side as you go in, and then on the left side is when I think the counter with the bread and all that behind, and she was behind the counter and would take your money for whatever it is you bought.
Did she make that ice cream or did she order it from somewhere?
I believe she ordered it. I don't remember. I think she ordered it. Yeah, I don't think she made it there. I don't believe she made it there. No.
Do you remember any particular flavors or specials?
No.
Okay. What other Cook's Corner establishments? I understand that there was a dentist there in the area. Other kinds of establishments that you might have gone to that were more appropriate for young people.
And then right down the way, probably maybe a quarter of a mile down the way, was Roman Wakes, and that was a kind of a juke joint too. And I was never able to go in there as a student. And I think maybe after I got out of high school, or maybe even after the service, I went in there once. But I never went in there either. And then there was another social place that a lot of high school kids used to go. That was over in Urbana, Mary Frances. And I never went there either because, that was, my folks wouldn't let me go there. So I never went and saw any of the nightlife there. But you talk about the dentist, the Mr. Dr. Polson was a little bit down the road there on Route 33. And so he was my dentist. And so I went there every once in a while to, for dental work.
Okay.
Not on a regular basis. And, I don't think I don't, like now I go to the dentist a couple of 3 times a year here. I didn't have a real program as far as going to this, but I went there 2 or 3 times, I guess. It was to his place several times.
What do you remember about him as a person?
I liked him. I remember him being a positive person. I have pleasant memories of him, even as a dentist.
Are there other Black establishments that you can remember that impacted you or your family in some way?
The church, Antioch Church in Saluda. Spent a lot of time there, and right across the way, actually the church and the elementary school were right there in basically on the same plot of land. So I had elementary school right across from the church there. And I guess they call it Antioch Elementary School. Antioch, I know it's Antioch Church. And I'm not sure it was Antioch Elementary or Saluda Elementary. I think it was Antioch Elementary School. And that was grades 1 through 7. Although I think I know I was there from grades, that was a 3-room school. And so I think grades 1 and 2 or 1 and 3 were in one room, and then 3 to 5 were in another room, and then 6 and 7 were in another room. And I remember in the third, one of those years, a couple of those years, I think when the fifth through the seventh grade, I went to another school, which was further, what would that be, east, called Milrow School. I did all my years there, fifth and sixth grade, or sixth and seventh grade, fifth, sixth, and seventh grade at Milrow School, and then came back to in the eighth grade to St. Clair Walker. And had fun at Middlesex High School. It was kind of strange going to the different school though in the between there, and so I had to prove myself there, I guess, because I remember like one of the first things I did was I got in a fight there that was, it was it was an arranged thing. I guess I had to prove, I don't know, something about me that they wanted to, but they had me fighting, it was like an event. And so I knew when I came to school that next day that I was going to have this fight. And so I was in it, and the guy hit me and I hit him, and it was a draw, and everything was cool after that. Everything was great after that. So I do remember that incident.
So can you explain how the fight came about?
It somehow, I don't know if you call it a fight or not, because I hardly knew the guy that I was going up against. But the guys that were at the school then, those fifth or sixth graders, somehow picked me out, and and so it just ended up that they staged this match, this boxing match or a fight or whatever, and it happened.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else you'd like to add today that we didn't cover?
No, not at this point. I just remember that whole time in Middlesex County. In those years, I had the cousins that I looked up to that went to school there. They were all over older. My Joyce, Teeny, Barbara, Tony, my Aunt Sadie, and Uncle George that lived right up on the curve there, about a quarter of a mile from me. And then probably another half a mile from there was where my grandma lived. And that was where a lot of the other cousins stayed. And, those were, I really liked those guys, really looked up to those guys. Most of them were a couple of years older than I was. So I looked up to them. And it was great, having a relationship with them. And the other thing that I remember is my dad's brothers that moved from Middlesex to Philadelphia, and their friends, a lot of them moved to Philadelphia, New York, and all that. But every year they would come back, and it was great when those guys came back from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, to homecoming at church or whatever, and it was always a swell time, a great time.
It's wonderful. That's wonderful. Well, I think that's all of the questions that I have. Thank you so much. And let me just stop recording real quick.